This episode is brought to you by CuriosityStream. Use our link in the description below for a 30-day trial giving you unlimited access to thousands of documentaries and nonfiction titles from some of the world's best filmmakers when you use the code Infographics. Over several decades, something quite bizarre has been happening over an area in the western United States, an area that encompasses the highly secretive military base known as Area 51. There have been over 2,000 tragic incidents involving planes, some of which just vanished into thin air. In fact, more weirdness has been going down in this place called the Nevada Triangle than has in the famed Bermuda Triangle. It might sound like something from the Twilight Zone, but trust us, strange things have been happening, and they've been well documented. Let's investigate. First, where exactly is the Nevada Triangle? Yeah, it's partly in Nevada, but it also covers parts of California. If you look on a map, imagine drawing a triangle with the northern point at Reno, then draw a straight line down to Fresno and go forward until you reach Arizona. Inside the triangle is the infamous city of Las Vegas. The aptly named for this show, Death Valley National Park, is also there, as is Area 51. There's a whole lot of wilderness in this triangle, with large parts of it being desert and mountains. There have been a fair few bodies that have ended up in this gigantic wilderness, as well as plane wreckages. That's why some people call it the graveyard for planes. Why so many planes just can't seem to get through this area has been speculated over for a long time. The accidents aren't made up. There really have been a very unusual number of strange tragedies, and if you take it that 2,000 planes have gone missing over 60 years, then that works out to around 3 a month. Yeah, that's pretty insane, and we intend to find out why. Maybe one of the most well-known casualties of the Nevada Triangle was a man named Steve Fossett. Mr. Fossett was a very successful businessman, but was better known for breaking lots of records in boats and planes. He became the first man ever to circumnavigate the globe in a balloon and in a fixed-wing aircraft. Needless to say, Steve knew his stuff. In fact, it would be harder to find a more skilled pilot. We could mention all of his successes and records, but that's an episode in itself. We will say that as well as flying and breaking records at the same time, he also climbed some of the world's highest peaks, competed in car races, and when that didn't prove enough excitement, he ran ultramarathons through mountains and did the odd Ironman. But Steve didn't get through the Nevada Triangle. On September 3, 2007, at around 8:45 in the morning, he got in a single-engine super decathlon light aircraft at a private airfield in Nevada. We don't really know why he went flying, but some have theorized that he was either going for the fun of it or scouting locations. He didn't submit a flight plan, but there was nothing especially weird about that. What is weird is that Steve never made it back that day. His plane vanished. It was fitted with something called an emergency location transmitter, which, in the event of trouble, should send a signal out, but that didn't happen. Though the transmitters are known to malfunction on occasion, or maybe that's just what they want you to believe. A huge search covering thousands of square miles ensued, but given that it was thought that he went down in the mountains, this search was incredibly difficult. The search crews consisted of many people, and while Steve didn't turn up, they actually found the wreckage of another 8 missing planes. Since they just couldn't find Steve or his plane, leading technology companies got in on the act by taking images of the area. Believe it or not, even psychics reached out and said perhaps they could help. Spoiler alert, they couldn't. If Steve had gone down, given his remarkable survival skills, maybe he could have lasted out in that cold wilderness. But as time passed, people gave up hope. After more than 2 weeks, the searches were called off and Steve was presumed dead. They started again, and they were called off again, and it's said to be the most complex search in modern US history, but it didn't pay off. Almost a year later, a hiker found some documents in the eastern Sierra Nevadas, and those documents turned out to belong to Steve. They were found about 65 miles from where he had taken off. A search resumed, and it was discovered that the crash site was on a mountain ridge in a place called the Ansel Adams Wilderness. Steve hadn't mysteriously disappeared off the face of the planet, as some people had said. Parts of the plane were found, but where was Steve, or what was left of him? Well, not long after, and some bones were found, and they were identified as Steve, while a pair of tennis shoes with animal bites on them were also found. It was assumed he'd likely died on impact, and then wild animals had dragged parts of his body away over a period of time. The National Transportation Safety Board later issued a statement regarding the cause of the crash. It said the reason was likely the pilot's inadvertent encounter with downdrafts that exceeded the climb capability of the airplane. Contributing to the accident were the downdrafts, high-density altitude, and mountainous terrain. So that's arguably the most famous case of death in the Nevada Triangle. Bigger planes have gone missing too. One of the better-known tragedies was in 1969 and involved a plane nicknamed the Gambler's Special because it often carried folks who like to bet in Nevada casinos. That plane hit a cliff, slid down into the snow, and all 35 people on board died. It seems the pilot took a different route that didn't turn out well. Again, getting to the wreckage was incredibly difficult. We'll give you a feel-good story now about a man named David Steves. Steves was an Air Force lieutenant and was flying a training jet when things took a turn for the worse and he had to eject from the plane. The man was in the middle of nowhere, and while a massive search happened, they couldn't find him. It was presumed he must have died, although they didn't find the plane. With broken ankles and in the freezing cold, he crawled for 20 miles over mountains that were later called impassable. The crawl took him 15 days and he had no food or shelter. How he survived is a miracle. Thankfully, he eventually crawled into an empty cabin and got his hands on some canned ham and some fishing hooks. With the state of his body, he couldn't go anywhere, but he at least got some food. While he was hanging out in the cabin, his friends and family mourned him. But after 52 days, some hikers came across David, and the story would have a happy ending if David didn't die in an air crash 8 years later. Even well-trained pilots have come undone in this area countless times, and in some instances, no wreckage or bodies were found. That may not sound too surprising given the Nevada Triangle's inhospitable terrain, but this hasn't stopped some conspiracy theorists speculating that stranger things are at work, and some of those missing planes might be linked to secret U.S. military skullduggery, Area 51, and even aliens. But let's stay on Earth for the time being and look at something called the mountain waves. No, these aren't ocean waves somehow lapping up against the tops of mountains, but fast-moving winds that happen on a mountainside and create oscillations of air above the mountain. If one occurs while a plane happens to be flying over, it might suddenly get carried on the wind and in some cases lose control, similar to a boat being carried on a wave and dumped on the other side. That's fine for surfers in the ocean. It's less good for an airplane pilot being thrown over a mountain onto the rocks below. Weather over the mountains is often unpredictable, and besides mountain waves, you also get things called downdrafts that spoil a pilot's otherwise peaceful day. One expert explained on a Nevada radio station, "It's quite easy for a small plane to get caught in the downdraft on the downwind side and not have the power or just the capability to get out of the way of that. These can create microbursts of wind and can send a plane out of control. Maybe the most famous incident of a microburst taking a plane out was in 1985 when Delta Flight 191 crashed. 137 people died and 28 others were injured. Professor Kelly Redmond, a climatologist with the Desert Research Institute in Reno, talked to the Nevada radio station KNPR about what was going on in the Nevada Triangle. He certainly didn't think all the accidents had anything to do with secret weapons or mischievous extraterrestrials. He said it was simply bad weather. He added, when the winds are coming up, they come up kind of smoothly on the west side. And then they have this very rapid descent, and there's a tremendous amount of turbulence that can be caused by such situations. He said the planes that went missing or crashed were all small planes. When they get caught in a downdraft, they just sometimes don't have the power not to be taken away. He said a downdraft can hit a plane so hard, it could be like Niagara Falls hitting something. He said an experienced pilot such as Steve Fossett could get out of all sorts of tricky situations, but with a downdraft, no level of skill will save you at times. He also said in such a vast area, some planes just misjudge where they are. Pilots take off to see the wonderful scenery of the Sierra Nevada mountains and end up becoming food for insects and foxes. So, is there really a huge mystery here? Well, you don't have to click around much to find online sleuths saying some of the planes were likely brought down by aliens or were target practice for the US military. After all, there are plenty of people in this world that believe the military hides more dark secrets than a teenage boy's browser history. Some theorists believe that aliens might have abducted these people, but as yet there is no solid proof in this world of aliens abducting people unless you listen to a handful of folks that all seem to live in small towns in rural America in the 1950s. We're going to go out on a limb here and posit that the Nevada Triangle is just an area with sometimes harsh weather for pilots. Either that or the pilots just need a bit more training when traveling such a wild landscape. That said, if you've seen our video about what was the inspiration for the TV show Stranger Things, you'll know there are some people in this world of ours that believe the US military has already developed technology that can make things disappear and reappear, aka teleportation. Were the planes teleported? Well, parts of missing planes have been turning up for years, so it's a hard theory to sell. If you've read the Missing 411 books written by former police officer David Paulides, you will have seen that he says in the USA there are places where clusters of people just go missing. The Nevada Triangle is one. He thinks something strange might be afoot, but if you look at these places, you can explain why there are death hotspots. Lots of people go missing in the area of the Nevada Triangle, and sometimes they aren't in planes, but hey, it's full of mountains and forests and wild animals. So how do you explain someone who doesn't come home after going hiking in a treacherous landscape? Did he fall? Was he attacked by a bear? Did he freeze to death? How dare you be so rational? You'd know the answer is he was teleported by the Air Force, who had done a deal with some green guys who just popped over from the Andromeda Galaxy. We apologize if our unraveling of this mystery took some of the magic out of it, but we just couldn't find many reasons for these disappearances that couldn't be explained by well-understood naturally occurring weather phenomenon or even simpler explanations. Or are you still not convinced? We want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, CuriosityStream. We know you love to learn just as much as we do, and there's no better place to get the highest quality documentaries and nonfiction titles than on the streaming service created for those with a lifelong quest to learn, explore, and understand. We just watched How to Build a Castle, and not only did we learn a ton, now we're ready to build one of our own. With thousands of videos across science, nature, history, and more, you'll never run out of new topics to explore. You can get unlimited access for just $2.99 a month or $19.99 a year. And for viewers of the Infographics show, the first 30 days are completely free if you sign up at curiositystream.com/infographics and use the code Infographics. Do you believe the US government really is hiding strange things from us, including whatever supernatural powers making people disappear in the Nevada Triangle? Tell us in the comments. Now go watch What Happens at and What Do We Know About Area 51. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.